What's going on YouTube? It's Tom here and we're back with another video today. Today is going to be a different type of video. This is going to be my most in-depth video I've ever done. And I'm thinking about doing these on all sorts of steels here coming up. So let me know what you guys think about this style of video and if I should continue to do videos just like this one. The steel that we have in front of us today is Vanadis 4 Extra. So if you guys aren't familiar with Vanadis 4 Extra, it is made by, I think it's Bowler, well, it's Bowler and Uddeholm is the same company now. So it's made by them. It is part of their super clean version of particle metallurgy, and it's basically supposed to be just an excellent knife steel. The knife I have in it is a Bradford Guardian 3 in the sheep's foot configuration. When I saw that Bradford was offering these in Vanadis 4, I wanted to pick one up. I'm a big fan of sheep's foot blades, so that's why I went with that. And it's been a really cool knife to test so far. So let's talk a little bit about Vanadis 4 here. We're going to start with the composition as we always do. We have 1.4% carbon, 3.7% vanadium, 4.7% chromium, 3.5% moly, and trace amounts of manganese and silicon. So the Z Knives app describes it as a steel that has high wear resistance and high chipping resistance. So, in theory, that sounds excellent. They say that it can reach 66 to 67, but Bradford runs these at 62 to 63, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And the other thing that you guys may or may not know is it's almost chemically identical to 4V. So 4V's been being put into some Spyderco knives here recently. I want to say they had a Para 3 in it. There was a Mannix in it. I think those are the only two that were out so far in 4V. So some people have gotten their hands on it, and I believe it's been tested a couple of times to be closer to that 66-ish range. I'm not totally sure, though. I don't remember. The only thing that differentiates it from 4V is 4V has slightly more vanadium and slightly more chromium, but it has slightly less carbon and moly. So they're almost identical. I'm going to throw a picture up on the screen here of a graph comparing the two. They're almost the exact same steel. The only difference is that the 4V is much more readily available. Vanadis 4 tends to be pretty difficult to get, which is really cool that a production company like Bradford is running knives in Vanadis 4. I know that they said it was limited quantities, and they're still sitting around, so I feel like it hasn't been that popular of a steel. But I definitely think you guys should check this steel out or these knives out in this steel, because I think it's a great opportunity to test a pretty darn exotic steel for a pretty decent price. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the major attributes of this steel and what my experiences are with each of those. So first one is corrosion resistance, because I have the least amount to talk about this. I've had no real issues with the corrosion resistance in my experience. I haven't had any rust spots or anything. What I did notice from the factory, and you guys might be able to see it here on camera, maybe not, I have some darker spots right here, like on the plunge grind. And I had some darker spots. You guys can see some little black spots there near the handle. This whole knife was kind of like that when I initially got it, but after cutting and stuff with it, that's all gone away. I think that's more due to the stone wash, and it has that moisture sit on there or whatever, and it gives it a little bit of a patina. I haven't, had this thing cutting food or anything, so I'm not totally sure on how corrosion resistant it is in that regard, but from work and sweating on it and stuff, I haven't had any issues with it corroding whatsoever. That's really all I have to say about corrosion resistance, because there's not really much to say on it. Next we're going to move on to sharpening, and that's where this steel gets a little interesting. So Vanadis 4 sharpens really easily and deburrs super quickly. The burr just pops off. I think that's partly to do with the steel itself, and then part of it being well heat treated. I think Peters does all of the Bradford heat treats. I'm not totally sure, though. I'm almost 100% positive that they do. The edge that comes up on Vanadis 4 is one of the finest I've ever experienced. That's real similar to to Crewware. The edge is just absolutely nasty that comes up. They sharpen very similarly, so if you like Crewware, you'll probably like Vanadis 4. It's just it has a little bit more vanadium in it, so it's a little bit more difficult to sharpen, but not very much at all. I've used different progressions with this. I've used diamond only progressions. I've used progressions with some ceramic finishing stones, and what I found is the diamond progressions tend to provide the best performance down the road. The ceramic ones, they tended to dull a little bit quicker, and that's pretty much how I'm going with all knives nowadays. If they have any somewhat significant portion of vanadium in them, I'm just going diamond only. I'm not even bothering with ceramics because it gives you a finer edge jumping up to those ceramics, but it doesn't hold it quite as long. So the progression that I found that works the best on this is my 200 through 1000 grit diamond, and then I'll strop it on 16 and 4 micron CBN. And that edge that comes up is really, really sticky, really, really sharp. Can whittle hair. I think I've posted a picture or two on Instagram of me cutting paper towels with it, and it's stupid sharp. I did chip this edge from the factory pretty bad, and it did take a long time to remove those, so that was to be noted. That whole process took me probably about 2.5 hours on the wicked edge trying to remove the chips. I'll throw in some pictures when we talk about toughness later on that. Those were some deep, deep chips. And the last thing I noticed about this thing as far as sharpening goes is that it strops back very, very well. So when it starts to get a little bit dull, you just pop it on the strops and it strops back very, very easily, and the edge is good to go again. Speaking of that, let's talk about edge retention here. Through use, I try not to judge it too much off the factory edge or even the second edge or so. I've got about, I think, 6 edges on this knife now. So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of how this thing's going to hold an edge. This seems slightly better than average in use. And when I say average, I mean the stuff that ends up at that 150 foot mark to 200 foot mark or so. So like VG10, CPM 154, OS 8, that kind of stuff. It seems it seems a step above this or above those steels, but not quite. M4, definitely not Maximate. Stuff like that. It's not quite there. What I did notice though is that it did show edge deformation relatively quickly. So I'd be cutting cardboard. You could get it in the light just right and you could see shiny spots. I noticed that probably right around 100-ish feet of cardboard, I would start seeing deformation like that. Honestly, I think I might be a little bit spoiled from the Maximate experience because now I expect these steels to not show any deformation until they're about dull. And Maximate just didn't do that. Vanadis 4 and other steels like this, they're gonna show a little bit of deformation there at the apex. It's gonna happen. What I did notice on Vanadis 4 is that it also seemed to hold a really fine edge for a while, so close to what it was initially. And then it would kind of drop to working edge and then fall off really, really quickly after that. There wasn't much difference between the fine edge and working edge in my experience. I did run an edge retention test on this. I was going to post the video separately, but I figured why not just throw it all in one big video so that way we have, this is as in-depth on a steel as I can possibly go. So obviously it's just like any of the other edge retention tests, sharpen at 200 to 1000 grit diamond, 16 and 4 micron CBN straps on leather. The dimensions on this one, it was 17 thousandths behind the edge at about 16 degrees per side. This was about 14 degrees per side from Bradford, which is awesome. I was really surprised with that. And I've changed it a little bit, and it's at 16. It's not quite at the 18 that I normally test at. And if you guys look at the spreadsheet after this, I will have an asterisk next to it denoting that it wasn't at the standard 18 degrees per side. So, I ran the test, cutting cardboard until it would no longer cut computer paper. And the first test I got 233.56 feet, which is very, very average. I was a little bit disappointed with that. I was hoping for 300 plus feet. With as much as this steel is hyped up to be what it is, I was hoping for 300 plus feet, but through the actual use I put on it, I've kind of had a feeling it wasn't going to quite do that. Um, just to eliminate the possibility that maybe, I something happened in the testing, I decided to run another test, and I got 231.67 feet, so less than 2 feet of difference, and that seems to be what this steel is going to do. Not bad by any means. That's pretty darn good as far as the grand scheme of things, but not quite what I was hoping for in this hyped up of a steel. I was really hoping that this was going to be something with, elite edge retention, but still having the toughness. Um, that being said, this is at that 62 to 63 that Bradford says it's being run at. I'm actually going to send this one out to Kurt and have it tested just to verify what it really is. But I can't help but think how much better this could be at the 66 or 67 that it can be run at. I think this thing would be an absolute monster at 66 or 67, and I'm hoping some of these guys that have the 4V stuff get them tested here soon, and we can see what this steel can actually do at its peak hardness. So with the edge retention out of the way, I went ahead and moved on to toughness and edge stability. So I never tested the true toughness, so the lateral strength, pushing on the knife this way or that way. I just never really, I don't know, there's no use in really testing that. No one ever really uses their knives for that. Especially a folder, although this is a fixed blade, so it might get used for that here and there. I mean, I'm pushing on it right now, and I feel it's not even giving very much. They say it has high ductility, but I don't feel like testing that. I don't feel like breaking a $180 fixed blade just to showcase how tough it is. So I never tested the actual true toughness of this knife. I did accidentally test the impact toughness. I think I posted a video or a picture of that on my Instagram when it initially happened. I was at work and dropped it from about 3 feet straight edge down onto concrete. Those were the initial giant chips that I put in the bevel that I was talking about earlier that took me forever to get out. I'll throw some pictures up on the screen right now. Those were really bad. They were roughly half the bevel height was chipped out, so I had to remove quite a bit of material to get rid of those. Seeing that, I was kind of disappointed with the impact toughness, and I never really had a chance to test it after that point. So I decided to run a test for impact toughness, and I'm going to play that right now. All right, for our last toughness test, or really edge stability test, I have a sheet of cardboard here with two packing staples in it. They're pretty damn big. They're, I'd say, maybe a 1/16 of an inch wide. They're a pretty decent sized staple. This is something that in your everyday use as you're cutting through cardboard, you might hit something like this, and this would show what an impact into something like this would do to Vanadis 4 Extra. So we're going to use that same portion that we just cut the zip ties with, just because that edge is still almost pristine except for at the very tip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the cut started in the cardboard and just push forward and try and hit that with some force, and we'll see what happens here. So there was one. There's two. Actually, I'm going to do 4 total. Alright, so there's our 4 marks. We definitely have some edge damage here, but not nearly as bad as I was expecting. So it seems to have some decent edge stability. The edge kind of rolled, and we do have some light deformation into the bevel. But I'll put it on the USB microscope so you guys can take a look at it. You guys probably can't see much of it here, but we will have some better pictures here in just a second. So I was pretty impressed with the impact toughness. Very, very small, deformation on the edge. Something that could be taken out within minutes, sharpening. So I was very impressed with that. that's more of the stuff that you're going to see in normal use as far as impact toughness. I don't think all of us expect to drop our knives 3 feet on the concrete every day, edge down, so not bad at all there. Then we're going to move on to edge stability. So the edge stability on this seemed very, very average. It showed shiny spots, like I said earlier, after about 100-ish feet of cardboard or so. Very average, just nothing that blew me away. So I ran a test on the edge stability for this as well, and I'll see you guys after that. Alright guys, we're back after edge retention testing, and we're going to do some zip tie cutting here on this Vanadis 4 Extra. You guys can see I taped up the portion of the blade where I cut. So this initial wrap of tape right here was where I taped it off for cutting, and then the next 1 inch or so that I taped up after cutting. So everything here on the front edge is stupid sharp. Let me grab a piece of paper real quick. So everything on this front portion is still crazy sharp. As you guys can see, it just glides right through paper, super easy. So we're gonna go ahead and cut these zip ties. I didn't have anything else to put them on, so we put them on a broomstick. And what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be wedging this up underneath it here and then using a twisting cut to pop them off. Hopefully stressing out that apex a little bit. I think I need to make these things a little bit tighter. We go. Got it down now, just wedging it up underneath it here as far as I can get it, and then twist hard to pop them off. This is a metal broom handle too, so I'm really trying to be careful not to damage it on the actual metal, but if it happens, it happens. Alright, that was 10 zip ties. Let's see how sharp it still is. A little bit of damage right out at the very tip, but that could have been from me digging into the metal itself too. Yeah, definitely some damage way out at the very tip, but other than that, it's still extremely sharp. Seems to have pretty decent edge stability. Pretty happy with those results, I can't lie. There's no real damage on it. I think the only damage that occurred on this knife was at the very tip, and I think that was from digging into the actual metal of the broom handle itself. So no real, actually zero edge deformation whatsoever, and stability seems pretty decent. Kind of what I'd expect for a steel at 62 to 63. All right, and with that out of the way, we're going to get on to my final thoughts here. I'm a bit disappointed with the steel as far as edge retention goes. After reading everything on it and how hyped up it was, I was kind of expecting a little bit more. I knew that 62, 63 was a little bit low though, and I still bought it with that in mind. I'm not dogging on the steel whatsoever. It's a really good steel as far as edge retention goes. In the grand scheme of things, it's really similar to LC200N, S35VN, and S30V. So if you're okay with the edge retention of those steels, you're going to be just fine with the edge retention of Vanadis 4. I was also highly impressed with the toughness, not including that initial drop onto concrete. The impact toughness really surprised me, And if you combine the slightly above average edge retention with the high toughness and the ease of sharpening of this steel, it's a great overall steel. It's very, very well balanced if corrosion resistance isn't a concern for you. This is a steel that I would actually highly recommend for everybody to check out while they're still widely available on Bradford's site. They have all sorts of options. You can get the stonewash version here. You can get their Nimbus finish, which is like a black wash. You can get one in black DLC. And then they have the flat handle scales as well as the 3D tapered handle scales. I've tested two Bradfords. Well, one was BJ's, one was mine before I had the channel. And the 3D handle scales make a huge difference on this knife. It was super, super comfortable in testing. No hot spots whatsoever. The only thing I would change if I could is getting rid of that stupid jimping. I hate jimping in general though. So even then, this jimping isn't that bad. But extremely ergonomic knife, extremely comfortable to cut with. Geometry is good as well. So that's something I'd definitely go check out. I'm going to put a link to their site in the description of the video here. Last thing is, like I said, this was the first type of video I've gone this in-depth on a steel. So I'd really like it if you guys could let me know if you like this style of video and if you'd like to continue to see videos like this on other steels. I have 3 or 4 steels in the works right now that I've been doing a bunch of testing on that I'd like to make a similar style video for if you guys enjoyed it. Otherwise, I'll continue to just do the edge retention videos and maybe some toughness tests separately. So anyhow, guys, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.